Good morning and welcome to the Point. It is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN, Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, those of you watching on GBN TV channel 7, 11 and 20, and good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9. Thank you so much and welcome to this morning's To The Point program. This morning, as my guest I have joining us is Chairman of the recently launched the Grenada Movement, Dr. Patrick Antoine. He's our virtual guest this morning. Good morning, Dr. Antoine.
Good morning. Good morning to all your listeners, your viewers. Good morning to Grenada.
And good morning to you again. Dr. Antoine, welcome to The Point, and we're going to get right into it. The Grenada Movement launched just a few weeks ago, and I guess the first question would be, why have you decided to launch this movement? It's not a political organization, it's an NGO. Why do you think the TGM is needed right now?
Well, I think that the idea to launch an organization like the TGM has existed with a number of us for some time. I think what's made it even more urgent is the fact that now we have the global economy, the regional economy, and our own economy in crisis. And we believe that it will take the efforts of all Grenadians, all ideas are coming together to take our country out of the difficult times that lie ahead. And we see the difficult times, as we've discussed from the beginning, as 3 to 5 years. And we believe that an organization such as the TGM that can speak to all sides and that can speak to from a non-partisan position is the best vehicle at this time to coalesce all the ideas into what is required, which is a new vision for the development in our country. So it's a new development vision that we're after, a vision that recognizes that the world is not going to go back to the way it was, and a vision too that also establishes that we need to fix the several things that prior to COVID we did not believe worked well, and many of which did not work well, and set the country on a new trajectory. So that is really why at this time, but the truth is that many of us have discussed a platform like this for some time.
And why an NGO and not a political party? For years, really, we've heard discussions about people saying we need to get away from the two main political parties. We need another organization that has a vision to take Grenada forward politically. So why an NGO and not politics? You don't want to get into politics in that way?
No, I have said before, to answer your last question first, that you can't get away from politics, certainly in a small country, or if you're alive. I keep making the point, and I'm happy that you said politics and not a political party. I'm answering that part first. That Jesus Christ was born in a manger because of a political decision. So we can't get away from politics. Yes, the political party, yes, is where you essentially have people who are bound together by a common ethos of ideas with the objective of gaining political power. My thesis has always been, it's not new. I've taught for, at the university level since 2006. And I've always held the view that before you can talk about a political party, you have to talk about ideas. And so there is no point jumping to talk about political party if you have no, what I want to say, constellation of new ideas to take your country forward first. And so my view is that it is the ideas, the coming together of ideas, which first and foremost is required. And so there is no just arbitrary step to, okay, I'm a political party. What I think we need to do, Grenada has two political parties and main political parties and others. What we lack really is the ideas and the action to take our country forward. and let me just say, new ideas and new modes of action to take our country forward. We see ourselves really focusing on ideas, and the rest will go where it has to go. We see ourselves as a platform where we can talk to all stakeholders, regardless of political party, regardless of NGO affiliation, whether farmers, fishermen, bus drivers, without them feeling that we have some political nexus of ideas that we're trying to sell. What we wanted was to form ideas first and foremost into a development vision. That's really our objective at this time. How do we create these ideas into a new vision that we've called the new economy? And how do we then transcend that into a new Grenadian society? We are very passionate about that. That's where we see it.
When you form, let's say you have a meeting or however you choose to come together to pool these ideas, let's say you have a meeting tomorrow morning, God willing, what next? After you get the ideas, where do you go from there? Would you be implementing them or try to implement them yourselves, or will you be going to the powers that be to see how you can work together to implement these ideas and plans?
I believe that what we need to do, having coalesced ideas, is to work with all the parties, including the powers that be, but not only the powers that be, because I believe that civil society sometimes doesn't recognize its role. I believe that civil society sometimes expect that a number of things will emerge without, I want to say, joined up action. And then let me just say again that we have a number of very strong civil society organizations in Grenada. A number of them have special purpose. I really love New Hello. I've always loved New Hello. And I love the person's energy most associated with New Level over the last couple of years. But that special purpose, from the idea of macro policy, from the idea of development strategy, there is a gap. Many countries have development societies. Many countries have economic societies. We don't have any of those. Follow me. And I think it's going to be important for us to have an organization like ours that essentially draws together, not just from the macroeconomic standpoint and the sectoral standpoint, but from a broad societal standpoint that's rooted in our history, where we've come from, also in where we can go as a small country with 100,000 people on any good given day. So my own view then is that is really where the nexus is for us as an NGO. And the political party issue, you want to have the messages out there and really test the system, see if the messages are going to be adopted. And if the messages, you get a sense, are not going to be adopted, then I think it's for the people who have helped to create those messages to decide what they want to do. My own view is that this thing really has to be demand-driven. It can't be the supply side, us driving. It has to be the demand side, with all of these people demanding change, demanding to see a number of things different in our society. That is really what will be the determinant, right, of whether, in fact, the ideas, if they're not picked up, will see an organization transcend to something else, or see an organization essentially morph into various segments of itself. So, for instance, you may have a segment dealing with economic development, but that's going to be driven by the people. We are just creating the platform and the vehicle to bring these ideas together.
You mentioned we, and that takes me back to the launch you had earlier this month. During the launch, I saw a lot of known faces, known specifically with politics. I recall Jenny Simon, who was a member of the NDC women's arm. Michael Church contested elections under the NDC ticket. You were part of Dr. Mitchell's advisors in the Ministry of Finance. And the question, I guess, could be, is it that these people are not happy with what they've seen from their respective political organizations? Or is it that they feel like they would do a better job at handling what needs to be handled with the development of Grenada?
I'm smiling. Just let me just say that that's a very carefully crafted question.
That was my intention.
Look. Let me tell you the truth. And no, I'm really smiling at the way you structured your question. Masterful. This is the truth. I can only think of about 3 or 4 people in all our membership that has had anything to do with public policy. I call it public policy, not necessarily politics, because I think many of us have had to do with public policy, but not the politics. For instance, I associate and I own up and I don't run from, and there's no revelation that anyone can make regarding the fact that I worked for Dr. Mitchell, and I have thanked the people of Grenada and the administration for the opportunity. Listen, let me tell you, I don't ever want to be accused of ungratefulness. It's given me a chance to grow. It's given me a chance to put academics into practice. It's given me a chance to really look at things differently. But the point is that there comes a time at which I think all of us need to look at things differently. We need to move to a different plane. We need to view the things we once viewed from a different perspective. So for me, I absolutely want to say that I enjoyed a lot of the opportunity given to me by the country. Michael Church is a friend. I say it publicly. I own up to it. Michael Church has been a friend for, I want to say, from the first day I met him. And so my relationship with him on ideas, even when he stood as a minister on the NDC side, we had a friendship, an enduring friendship, where we would meet, where we would disagree, where I would call him for advice, for instance. Even when I served as an advisor on Dr. Mitchell's team, on behalf of the people and government of Grenada, I would call him for advice because I'm not a public servant, so I didn't know the way that things worked well. And he gave me really great advice. And let me tell you that a person I want to own up to, who's also given me a lot of advice, who really inspired me to go in the direction that I've gone in today, is George Prezant. He was like my surrogate father. And he set me on a passion for economics in addition to the taste I got from my dad. And he's also assisted me a lot with international relationships, even when he was not in his prime. And he was always someone driving and driven for and by ideas. And that's me. That's what I do for a living now. I really deal with, with strategic thinking. I deal with guiding countries, companies, conglomerates, even now through this very turbulent period. Jenny Simon is a young lady I've always had a high regard for. Even when Jenny would, as they would say in Grenada, take a turn in my tail, I would meet her in the supermarket and I would hug her and laugh and tease her and so on. And that level of camaraderie that we've had since she went to high school and I was coming from IFE, walking over Morass, down into Tempe and Mount Parnassus, I've always admired her. Right? Absolutely tenacious spirit. So let me say that we see this coming together of colleagues who've always shared a common bond. And let me tell you, in one way or another, many of us share that bond. We have a beautiful young man called Garth Walters. He's Josephine Walters' son. Oh, what a gem. Oh, let me tell you, I'm saying to the Grenadian people today, oh, what a gem. And let me tell you that it is not because of TGM. He actually did a stint with us at my office, and he left an impression on every single professional, right? Needless to say, he aced the paper he was writing, but it was his composure. And there are these beautiful young people who cause us to want to create a new society that goes against the grain of anything goes. And I celebrate him. And I celebrate many others like him that we have in our organization. And it's these people, more than the politics, more than the discontent, it's these people and this need to look at things differently. Garth is very idealistic. He takes his time to analyze issues. Michael Church has seen a lot. I still reach out to him for ideas. Jenny Simon has also gone through her own maturation and our own journey through the politics and through society. You couldn't want a more loving sister than Jenny. And we've all come together on this platform that is not based on discontent, but it's based on us seeing a different kind of Grenada emerge. And that is really what binds us. As you know, Michael Church ran into difficulties because years ago, he took me on, as I took him on, as a quiet advisor on trade policy issues. Nothing wrong with that. I'm Grenadian. I stand by it all the time. But that's the strength of our friendship. And I'm just saying that that is the basis for all of this and the basis for why we look at things going forward and not from discontent. We're not concerned about the discontent. Everybody's been disappointed. No one is perfect. The NDC would have made some mistakes. They would have done some good things. The NNP would have done some good things. They would have made some mistakes. Mr. Brazan, when he was Prime Minister and when he was Minister, would have made some mistakes. He would have done some good things. Grenada needs to come together. You know, we talk about the revolution. It's not the revolution alone. The revolution did some good things. It did some bad things. We just passed October the 25th. I had to leave Grenada as a kid because the Gary regime harassed my family to the point where my mother was on the verge of essentially, God knows what. But the truth is that in that period, we had a society where we had a lot of things going on, ideas, and it was just, it was a different period in our time, and we became a little more self-reliant, and we did some beautiful things, but there was a lot of pain as well. Grenada has to learn from all of it without finger pointing and feeling that we are sanctimonious or self-righteous. And so we're not going to deal with the next man because his ideas belong to another party or a different time or a different family. That's the new society that we're talking about. And so again, it's not discontent, it's this common bond that we share and where we want to go. That's really driven us. So your question is so carefully after I had to respond to it carefully as well.
How many members are there in the TGM, and what if there are other people who would like to be a part of the Grenada movement? Can they? What are the requirements, the criteria? How can I apply? How can I be a part?
We don't keep numbers, but I want to tell you that the membership's been growing steadily. I think, we could get the numbers. It's growing steadily, very steadily, both in Grenada and outside. And there's a lot of interest in this platform of ideas. People want to be able to contribute. Last night, we hosted a session with an eminent Grenadian on mental health. And we had, nearly 30 people on, and the quality of the discussion moved me. I joined late. And we had, of course, Perry Douglas talking about his own ideas. Whether you agree with all of them or part of them, we need to start talking. We need to start generating ideas that can lead to innovation and change. And how do you join? There is a website, I'm told. You have to forgive me because I don't claim to be the sort of custodian of all of the facts. We have an organization with assigned functions, but there's a website, a social media page, and a number of the people who are the contact points, of course, are well known. So that is there. And there is an office that's been identified to be established in a matter of weeks. We're trying to set that up properly. So between the social media and the website, or if the website isn't live yet, social media, don't hold me accountable. I don't possess to have all the facts because, as I said, we have assigned responsibilities. People can join that way. But it's an ideas group. It's an ideas group first and foremost. We believe that before you talk about who to put, you need to talk about what to put. And we think that there's a big, big gap in our country because before you talk about what to put, you want to know about who's saying it. Who's saying it? You don't even hear what the idea is yet. But you dismiss it because it either comes from someone on the green side or someone on the yellow side. Or, in many instances, someone from outside. Because we think he either a foreigner, he just come back, he ain't know what he's talking about. or who he think he is. He ain't know nothing about that. Look where he come from and where he born, right? Yeah, we have to stop it. I want to be very clear. I have reached a stage with 4 children where I believe I've earned the right to speak freely. I speak freely without fear, right? We need a coming together in our society. It is too divided. Our society is too divided. TGM wants to close that gap by bringing people together.
And before we go to the break, this question comes from comments, 1 on the YouTube, 1 on Facebook, and 3 on the WhatsApp. You said from the onset that this is an NGO, not a political organization. However, there are people who feel like tricks of the trade. You're starting like an NGO with the intention of. Is that anywhere in the plan? Is there room for that to happen, or NGO is NGO and that's that?
Okay, so again, you're very clear, but then you just did a shift in your wording there. Let me just go back to the wording carefully. So before that, we were talking about TGM as a political party. Some of my people sent me messages saying that I'm a classic technocrat. Well, I don't apologize for that because I am not a classic economist. I'm not a classic politician. I am an economist, not a classic politician. So we never said that because I said everything has to do with politics, that we don't see ourselves in the structure of NGOs, right, as a political organization. It's not wording. If you look at the word NGOs, it covers, right, in some countries, let me help the public here today. In a lot of countries, NGOs and civil society also covers opposition parties. I said so on a program. In some countries, it does not cover opposition parties. They see those as political parties, but it covers pressure groups, it covers interest groups, it covers like-minded groups, it covers lobbying groups, right? So it's a wide spectrum, yeah? So what we are is that we are an NGO for the reason that, right, there is no one in our organization that is in the, that holds, right, a government position. Non-governmental, independent. That's what it means. And sometimes we have to use these programs to clarify our language because we're very clear. Whether this progresses into something at some time, if I sat here and told you that I knew that, I would tell you that I would be the wealthiest man now because I could then forecast anything. Again, not political speak. This is why. We are putting ideas together. Somehow it may not be me. Garth is probably 25 years younger than me and his generation, and they're very bright. You saw them at the lunch. I want to say something because I'm not today going to limit myself to talking only about some of the things that have to do with what we did as they call us the older folks. I never saw myself older until Michelle Alexander reminded me that I was not exactly young, and I love our faith because I love when people challenge, and I'm very open, and this is how I've always been. But let me tell you that we believe that they're the ones who will inherit this. At 56, we're starting to look at our sunset. I am very clear that we're looking at our sunset. So that if I were to tell you that I knew that in 3 or 5 or 10 years that this would still be an NGO, it couldn't be. What I will say to you, though, is the following. The people of Grenada will determine where TGM goes. But TGM's first responsibility is to develop the what to put. Where they want to take it after that, it's a matter for them, right? We are just starting a vehicle which can be driven in any direction that the people determine it must be driven in.
Okay, well noted. On that note, let's take a break and then we're going to come back. I know there are questions that members of the public would like to ask Dr. Antoine in light of the launch of the Grenada movement. We'll be right back. This is To The Point. Stay with us.
Godfrey Augustine. March 13th, 1979 to October 25th, 1983.
National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, reminds the general public to always be prepared. Make sure you have emergency supplies stocked away just in case. Here is a list to help you and your family. At least 1 gallon of water daily per person for 7 to 10 days. Enough food for at least 3 to 7 days. Non-perishable packaged or canned food and juices. Special items and food for babies and the elderly. Non-electric can opener. Cooking tools and fuel. Paper plates, plastic utensils, paper cups, trash bags and duct tape, useful for cleanup or patching leaks in an emergency, blankets, pillows, first aid kit, medicines, prescription drugs, toiletries, hygiene items, moisture wipes, tarpaulin to cover holes if needed, bleach, water purification tablets, flashlight with extra batteries, battery-operated radio, cash, small bills. Banks and ATMs may not be open or available for extended periods. Keys to house and cars, toys, books and games. Important document in a waterproof container or watertight resealable plastic bag. Up-to-date insurance, medical records, bank account numbers. Keep important phone numbers here. You may know them, but a loved one may not. A pocket knife, nails, a hammer and a rope are important elements. Towels and buckets are useful too if you develop a leak. Vehicle fuel, keep tanks filled.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA.
Welcome back to The Point. We're speaking with Chairman of the Grenada Movement, Dr. Patrick Antoine. At this point in the program, we're going to invite our viewers and listeners who may have questions for Dr. Antoine. 435-2041, that's the landline number. That's also the WhatsApp number. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp. You can also post your comments, questions, queries, concerns on Facebook and YouTube. Please keep them respectful. Let's go to our first caller of the program. Good morning, caller.
Good morning to you, Ms. Blossom.
Morning.
And good morning to Mr. Antoine. Mr. Antoine, I am totally convinced that your party or your organization is heading to a political party. But you are very clever, extra clever, I'll say, the way you answer your question, and we expect that from you because you are very intelligent. I know that. You are very intelligent. But I don't think you can deviate from it at all, that I, as an individual, solely certain that you are heading into a political party. And that's the right of every citizen. Just to advise, we see those things already happen. For instance, when Mr. Terry Forrester left NMP, he said that he was coming with a political party. Then he said he was contesting the election as a party. What did he contest the election as? We know. Dr. Alexis, when he left the NDC, he said he wasn't certain that he's going to go into frontline politics. What he end up with? A party. What happened to his party? It's dead. Mr. Michael Baptiste, same thing. Miss Roberts, same thing. So we have examples of the way forward for this thing. You are right to think and to come up with ideas that you think could be. Because there are times that the government need to be straightened. There are times that the government do things that somebody needs to talk out. So you have no problem in your group of people speaking when they're not satisfied with things that the government do. There are decisions that the government make that is not in keeping with the majority of Grenadians, and people have to talk out. So you were totally right there. But nothing could tell me that you are not heading to a political party.
Thank you, caller. Doc?
No, listen, man, Grenadians, not just me. I want to thank the caller, but any intelligence I have, I want to give credit for to God and my great grandmother and my parents. and people like Brizan who poured into me. But let me tell you that the caller is also extremely intelligent. And when I listen to programs like these, when I do have the opportunity, I smile at the intelligence of our people. Listen to the way in which he articulated. Listen, I can't blame the caller for his view. I did not say that TGM was never going to be a political party. I want to be clear. Nobody put those words in my mouth. What I said is that right now we're working on the content. We're working on the what to put. And I said that the Grenadian people will determine where TGM goes. And you wisely asked, well, what is your first line of action? And I said, I agree, our first line of action is working with all the stakeholders, including the government, in trying to put our agenda to them. So I don't think the caller, and I want to thank him for the way in which he clearly articulated, but I just want to make it clear that I couldn't sit here. I may not be here in 3 months. I may not be here in 6 months. You know, I passed through 2019, right? Was a year I don't want to relive. In 2019, I lost 5 people close to me. But we have an executive, and if I'm not here, I want to essentially give the view that the executives agreed to, which is we want to work on the what. Where the organization goes, first call, let's see how we can work and try to get people to adopt our agenda. Second call, if that doesn't happen, the people will determine where it goes. So I listened to the caller, and he's associated us. The only thing I disagree with is him linking us with a number of experiments which did not work out. I believe that whether it's now or 5 or 10 years, our society is changing. What we wanted was to start a vehicle. Where it goes, I know it's going to be successful. And that's really the only point on which the caller, and he's probably smiling, differ. But we're not trying to con anybody. None of those people, as far as I know, sat down and really did what we're doing, which is spend hours and listen. We've been meeting now, I want to say since March, April, just on ideas and agriculture and economics and health and technology, just meeting. Nobody has done what we're trying to do. So we're not trying to pull anything over anyone's eyes. Let us work on the agenda and build it out someone. I want him to join us too, because with articulation like that, and analysis like that, there's only one place for him, in TGM.
Somebody on WhatsApp is asking if you can explain the TGM logo. In my opinion, it is very futuristic.
Yes, the logo came after about 12 rounds of meetings and with input from, I want to say, over 100 people. And what the logo is, it's actually the nutmeg, which we see as essentially the patrimony of our country. And we tried many other things, but the only one that brought consensus was the nutmeg. And the map of Grenada is drawn in maize. And also the maize captures the Petit Martinique and Carriacou. And that tells you that we're really dealing with the whole of our society. That's the first thing. So that symbolizes the whole of our society. And the horizon, the sun rising on the horizon, really tells you that we continue to look with hope, and we have this vision, yes, of a new day for our country as small countries. And then you see that it's also now in this context where it's open with 2 arms, because Grenada really can't exist in isolation. We're part of a more open economy, an open globalized economy. So for us, it's lifting Grenada when you put it together. Yes, lifting Grenada as a small nation, the patrimony of which is that thing that we've still not yet maximized, the nutmeg. We've not maximized it, right? Others are gaining value. We're still dealing with this as a raw material when others are extracting the greatest value from it, but looking with hope. And then, of course, the 2 arms indicate that we need to nurture and care for it, right? The two arms indicate what we want our society to be: caring, loving, nurturing. And of course, the black in the nutmeg that you see, it's the fact that we are a nation that is more than 85% black. If you believe some studies, 90% black. But it also speaks to the fact that we are a country that is primarily, or 40, we see as being agricultural. And of course, outside of that, you see the openness. It talks to the fact that we are also marine. So we take all of that into account in the logo. And that's what the logo has come to mean for us. So, yes, it took a lot of effort, a lot of work, and we believe that we have something that, just as you say, futuristic, the person, we want it to be a logo that subsists over time. Whether it's 5 years from now, that logo must not get stale. Yes, must not get stale. And of course, you see the colors on it too. Also depicts the colors of our national flag.
Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning, Citizen Welsh. Greetings and greetings to your guest, Mr. Antoine. Oh, there are so many things to ask Mr. Antoine, but I'll focus on one for the time being. First, I must tell you that I appreciate any organization coming forward today in a bid to mobilize the people of Grenada towards getting them out, setting a course and getting them out of this state of demise that we're in. But I want to focus on one thing and to ask the question. Mr. Antoine, there is abundance of evidence. And I am doing this question because I believe that anything we have to renew and to set focus and a direction on into the future must begin at the base, at the foundation. There's abundance of evidence to prove that the constitution on which this country operates is illegitimate, invalid, was never ratified, neither in referendum nor discussed and debated in the parliament of this here country, therefore making it an act. I'd like to ask you, therefore, has your organization considered this? And if you haven't, I urge you to do so. And what's your view generally in our country being run without an appropriate and legitimate constitution? Thank you very much, sir. Have a nice day. Will you?
Thank you.
You see what I tell you about the acumen and the intelligence of the Grenadian man and woman and child? Just incredible. We have not fully embraced matters of the Constitution as yet. We intend to. We have 3 schools of thought. We have persons in our organization that share the view that one of the urgent imperatives for us now is to look at the Constitution. You imagine the young people coming out of what's happened with the attempt at the Emergency Powers Bill with COVID. They too now have an interest in looking at elements of the Constitution in a new way. So the short answer is that it is certainly welcoming to hear that others realize that it is an urgent priority for us. We recognize that. We're accepting the caller's invitation that we need to look at it, and we will be doing so shortly. We have a number of persons that we are thinking about to put into that working group on justice, law, and order. And an important part of that really is going to be how we look at the Constitution. Let me just say that there are other things that we want to see enshrined in the Constitution, and there are things that we believe need to be amended. But all of that will come in the fullness of time. I want to thank the caller for his observation, and we accept graciously his call that we should look at the Constitution as a matter of priority.
A question on YouTube. Somebody is saying, why should we as Grenadians believe someone that spent all their lives overseas, who never invested in Grenada and now wants to come back and tell us to do this and to do that? How would you respond to that person?
Well, it's a little better than the last one. When I represented the government, there was a caller who told me to go back to Jamaica, and very angrily so. Well, let me just say the following. All of the premise of what the caller speaks about is incorrect. And I want to say that there's one correct aspect, though, which I want to perhaps qualify. So I'm saying they're all incorrect, but I want to qualify one aspect. I didn't leave Grenada at 7 years old willingly. I had to flee. Okay? I've said this to a number of colleagues and they got silent, because the truth of my family's departure from Grenada was never really known by many. And of course, as a little child, when I would come back and I would get teased about the accent, I felt it was, it was just a cruel thing because I didn't leave willingly. When I left, I couldn't tell friends where I was going. Yeah, we left, and the government of Jamaica at the time was gracious enough to accept us and to treat us no different to the way in which they treated a Jamaican family. I say that deliberately. But I didn't leave willingly. I left because my father was denied the right to work. I left because my mother had come to the point where she could not sleep. I left because my yard was being shot up with 303 rifles in the night. I left because one day coming from Ladigue, where my family lived and where every year, follow me, every year I came back to Grenada. I went up to the country and to Montmorris. It was sort of a homage. Every year we came back. I'm not just come back. Every summer, the trek was Trinidad for a couple of days and Grenada for a long period in the summer. So I never lost touch. But I left because on the last occasion, our vehicle nearly got thrown over the bridge in Birch Grove, the time by the Mongoose gang, with myself and my young brothers in there, my mother and father, with my brothers and I screaming. So that's the first thing. So my family didn't leave willingly, but I came back every year. Every single year we came back. And I want to say this. We came back in 1980, and I taught and labored and did everything that anyone in Grenada does because I left again in 1984. And during that time, of course, I made great friends. I had the time of my life. That's the Grenada I remember well. Yeah? And then when I was finished, Mr. Brizan wanted me to come back to work, but I couldn't do it. And I came back to Grenada not because of politics, Collie. I came back because I had a bond to serve. You see, I come from a family that's a little strange where those things are concerned. See, I didn't have to sign a piece of paper. I got a scholarship from the government of Grenada because I did well in Form 6, and I had to come back to serve a bond. I couldn't serve it because I didn't have the opportunity to serve before. So I came back to Grenada when I had the opportunity to serve. And that opportunity was first handed to me by Mr. Brizan, by Dr. Mitchell. But when Dr. Mitchell's organization offered it, it was opportune because I was between contracts. And I could then take it up because at the time, I had finished dealing with some obligations I had to deal with. So I am the essence of the Grenadian person. Let me repeat. I am the essence of the Grenadian person. And since then, my family and I have invested virtually nowhere else except Grenada. So I'm not sure where that is coming from. And I'm not sure that I want to tell you all that I've invested in. But what's more important is this. Grenada has invested in me. That's the most important thing. Grenada has put its love, its education, its sacrifice in me. I am Grenadian to the bone. I could be many other things I qualify. The only passport I have is the Grenada passport. The only home I have is Grenada. When I say home, my heart is in Grenada. My navel string is under a French castle tree in Montmorris. Let me repeat. My navel string, I was not born in a hospital, I was born at home. My navel string is under a French castle tree in Montmorris. Grenada is my home. So for all of those who wish I were Jamaican and wish I could go back, and those who believe that I've lived outside and haven't come back, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry to disappoint you. I am all you have. I am just as Grenadian as you, and I love it.
Well, I'll tell you this. I learned this morning that you are Grenadian because I always thought you were Jamaican. I'll be honest with you. So look, I'm learning something new this morning. Look, I'm learning something new this morning, Lord. Okay, let me go back to the phone lines. Let me see. Hold on. Wait, the phone ringing? Yes, the phone is ringing. Let me go back to the phone lines. Good morning, caller.
Greetings. How are you?
I'm good. How you do?
Not too bad, you and your guest. Permit me to make 3 or 4 points briefly.
You have 2 minutes.
Oh, boy. First of all, I appreciate that there's a need for what I would say, let me use the word movement, going forward into the future with Grenada prosperity. But secondly, I am not too convinced that the approach taken by Dr. Antoine is more or less straightforward and honest for encapsulating the entire population. Having said that, my third point, I would like to recommend that if it is the Grenada movement involving the people, grassroots, then despite COVID, social distancing, these virtual meetings is not sufficient. Based on past experiences, we need to have village or parish consultation meetings with the people so that a person like myself can quiz Dr. Antoine and the other persons based on their own track record and the track record of Grenada. Finally, we have many other issues to raise. It's very disturbing to know that you want to go forward with a new vision, even though I'm paraphrasing, but you had no background knowledge and aspiration or determination as a first priority to put the foundational constitution into perspective. We have a lot of situation in Grenada that speaks to our democracy is at risk. We had the problem with the electoral machinery. So while, yes, we're talking about the patrimony and the economic issues, we have plenty constitutional issues and social issues to address. And I think we need to meet the people and let's have a genuine talk to go forward, or else it will be the same thing going over and over. Grenada, isle of conflict. As he said, Judge Brizan is his mentor. Let us be honest in going forward and come to the people, open discussion, open debate. So, forging a national new vision for development for Grenada. Let us come to the people, and this not this top, bottom, intellectual to the grassroots. Let us, if you want to act on behalf of the grassroots people, come to the people. Not social distancing, not Facebook. Let us come to the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Doc?
Yeah, well, I believe that the caller makes a number of very good points. I believe, for instance, that his point, beginning with the last one, on the importance of having grassroots consultations is key. And I think that the colleagues that I'm talking to, a number of them have been doing that, not widely enough yet, because I think what's happening is that they themselves, just like us, we are starting to formulate some things. Before you go to people, you have to have, in my mind, a framework. And I think that's what they're doing. So this is not an organization that's 20 years old now. This is an organization that people started meeting. The caller is correct in recognizing that it's COVID times. We started meeting in the middle of COVID. We started meeting virtually because we were under lockdown. So I'm not sure that part of the caller's contribution takes that into account. A large part of the time that we were meeting, no one could congregate at all. You couldn't leave your homes. I want to make that point. And the caller needs to take that into account, because I take his point that we need to have a lot more consultations on the ground. The third thing is that we have a number of people who come from the grassroots. In fact, let me use this opportunity to say to people that there is a view too that somehow I was born with a silver spoon and I descended from Pluto or from Mercury. I actually came from very humble beginnings. I was a farmer. Let me repeat for you. I was the only farmer in Form 6 with his own land and his own plot. Other people farmed for their father. I did that too. But I was a farmer. I went to Form 6 oftentimes when my farming closed. So you're talking about fishermen, that I know about as well. So let me just make the point that the caller's point is valid, but one must not presume at all that the quote-unquote grassroots, that's where I came from. And let me tell you that I spend a lot of time there, and I'm going to say something that people may get upset at. Wherever I am, whether I live in Barbados or live in Jamaica or live in Trinidad, I spend a lot of time helping and working with quote-unquote the grassroots. I understand the day-to-day struggle, but we need to have more consultations. I think the caller's point about not being convinced, no one will continue to write that story for us. We are saying over and over that we want to work on the substance. And the caller halfway accepts that because he talks about consultations. That's important. But no one will write this story for us. We're not ducking. It is easy to jump up tomorrow morning and say a political party. And then what? What are you offering? What are your ideas? Right? Where do you intend to take country? How is it going to be funded? So no, it can't work that way. You have to talk to all sides, and that's where the ideas the caller makes about the Constitution is important. So the caller must understand then that I didn't say that we don't understand the Constitution. He couldn't be that serious about insulting me and my colleagues. No. What I said, what the previous caller spoke about was constitutional change. And the same process that the caller spoke about in terms of grassroots consultations. Constitutional change can only come from there. I have ideas. I'm sure Dr. Mitchell has ideas. Dr. Alexis had ideas. Yes? The Constitutional Reform Committee had ideas. My view is that the change must come from the consultations he mentioned. So no, I understand the Grenada Constitution well. That's why I said we have some things we would like to see amended, but we need to form a consensus around that. But all in all, I think you're having excellent exchanges. Again, another very intelligent contribution. I expected nothing less this morning. And we are open to engage. When I come to Grenada, I'm prepared to engage with the caller, as my colleagues are. But let me tell you this. I will not be violating COVID. And I want to send a clear message here today to all the listeners. COVID is serious. I have lost 3 cousins and 2 very good friends from COVID. I had a person in my office that was COVID positive. We had to get the entire office tested. I wouldn't go into the details, only to say that there are longitudinal impacts from his COVID exposure. So no, I love you. I love you bad. And I love my people bad. But I love life more. I wouldn't be doing this during COVID. That could wait. Once there's life, anything can happen. Yes? But life first. We need to support the government on COVID measures and help them fix the measures that are not working well. That's the message I want to leave this morning. Not to criticize, and he didn't say that. I'm saying that. Right? Because this is no joke. Right?
There's a WhatsApp question that asks, it is good that you have now seen the light of not being in company with the NNP. My concern, however, is your association with the now failed chicken farm in St. Mark, and I ask for your position on what happened.
Okay, well, that would take a long time, so let me make it short. It is a matter of public record that I received, asked for, benefited from nothing from the poultry project. It is a matter of public record that the poultry farm looked good. When I joined that project, it was long established. I was not an investor nor beneficiary. I served on the board as a technical person, and I'm answering them now because there's a need to create a public policy regime that can support the poultry industry. Let me say that I'm also doing that now, right, for another country somewhere else. And in Grenada, I had the unenviable task of doing what most people, including people in Grenada, thought couldn't be done, which was to go to the WTO, and 2 years of my life was taken up renegotiating what we call the bond rate, which is the maximum rate you can put in place on poultry. Because years before that, we messed up when we put it at 30%, when the rest of the region is at 100 and 200. I was the first person in CARICOM, and only one of 3 people at the time to have renegotiated bond rates which are legal bindings upwards. And that is why I was on the board. The poultry project failed, and I stand by this. I'm not ashamed of the association. I learned a lot, and the country ought to look at projects like this and recognize 2 things. Not every project will succeed. Let me repeat again. Not every project will succeed. But I think it's what we learn from the failures the poultry project failed because just about the time when they were about to move to the second phase, there was Ivan. I ought to know, I remember Ivan well. I had the enviable task of playing a role with rehabilitation and so on during Ivan. I remember it well. One of the casualties of Ivan was the poultry project, because the way in which the deal was struck up, and not deal meaning anything illegal, with the that would cover the rest of the project. After Ivan, it was not feasible, and hence they couldn't move beyond that point. So the project failed. I heard all sorts of things, but I can stand by what I'm saying. Again, I was not an investor, I was not a beneficiary, but I think we need to be frank, right? That is what happened, right? So that the bank could no longer give the support it needed to give, because the government couldn't do what it was supposed to do in meeting its contribution. And that is why the poultry project did not complete. So again, there is no association with the poultry project. I sat on the board as a public policy person because I dedicated 2 years of my life to doing what I just said. And there is still the need, follow me, there is still the need to create a public policy where our domestic poultry producers can compete against imports from the United States and Brazil. I know that there are some processing plants going up. We created some space, but there is a need to create that regime. Because up to this morning, when I looked at the prices, and you see the prices from the US, from Brazil, 17 cents for leg quarters, 17 US cents for leg quarters, right? Even if you put 100% duty on that, you can't compete, right? So what we did is that we created that regime, but there's still a need to do a lot more. And I stand with the poultry producers, but I just want to make that point clear. There is absolutely nothing where the project is concerned that I feel, to my mind, ashamed of as someone who sat on the board of a project which in phase 2 could not win the fiscal support to go forward because of IMA.
And as we wrap up, Dr. Antoine, since your launch earlier this month, I know according to public records, registration document for TGM was filed in August. Between August and now, what would you say the TGM has been able to accomplish? I mean, I know you're still a young organization and you may not have been able to, build a community center or so, but what would you say have you accomplished in the last 3 months of your existence?
I think what we've been able to accomplish is threefold. One, we are building out a development agenda where we started to now articulate what are the elements of this new economy that we see. We spent a lot of time looking at that, and that's where that is going. Secondly, we have 2 collaborations that are nearly completed, one in education and another one dealing with technology that we're looking at. They're very close to completion, meaning that we're discussing MOUs and that kind of thing. So that's what's been going on since then. And I think for us, it's important for people to recognize this. We are not here just to give something. We are here as an NGO to work with you so that we can create something that's not there. Yes? But in terms of those 2 outreach things I spoke to you about, which really is not our forte as an NGO, it's really the ideas and how we come up with an agenda and that kind of thing, and how we bring people in, just as the caller said, by having consultations on the ground. That is really our focus. It's not the typical NGO where you're going out there and give this and give that and give the other. Personally, I don't need an NGO to do that. I do that on my own. I do that on my own, and I know many other people in my group do that on their own. And we don't do it, as Matthew says, to violate Matthew by doing it and you wave a flag. But let me tell you that on that side, in terms of helping and building our society, I do that on my own, and I've done so for more than 20-something years, every single year, substantially so. The NGO is about building something bigger than that, bigger than Patrick Antoine, bigger than any one of us, bigger than, it is so huge what we can achieve if we work on this together. It really is remarkable that it hasn't been done before. And there's room for a lot more NGOs like ours. My final view is this. What I would really like to do, in addition to the Grenada movement, which is not mine, it belongs to all of us. The name is not mine. The logo is not mine. What I really want to do is to be able to build a home for teenage boys who are troubled. That's really that's my dream. So, my next project, when people hear me say that I will not be retiring, is to essentially bring all of the relationships I have to build such a home in Grenada so that we can start creating the fine men, strong, black, intelligent young men who can take our society forward. That's my passion, really. That's where my mother spent a lot of her life in the deaf education circle and dealing with people who are not physically able in many instances and some physically challenged. And that's where my father spent his quiet life giving a lot away for education. That's my passion. So my passion is not politics. All of this has to be a means to something greater. That's me talking now personally on what my desires are. A home for teenage, young black Grenadian boys who have not had a fair chance. That is my dream. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Dr. Antoine, and I support your dream 100%. Thank you so much. Continue to stay safe and COVID smart. Thank you very much. All right. That was Chairman of the Grenada Movement, Dr. Patrick Antoine. We thank him for being our guest this morning and giving us an update on the movement. And thank you, our viewers and listeners, for tuning in. I hope I got to most, if not all, of the questions, and I thank you for tuning in. That's the end of my time today. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, God willing. Janelle is up next with Mid-Morning Buzz. Have yourselves a safe, productive Tuesday. Continue to wear your masks and be COVID-19 smart. Have a good day.